So this is the first time in many years that MOER is presenting at GISMO. I think we did it when we first came up with our first version of SPEED about 10, 12 years ago. So I am pretty excited, and you can see from this photo that Brooklyn is pretty excited about SPEED too. I was walking with my daughter down Atlantic Avenue and saw this poster. I think it's not poster, it's a mural outside. I think it's a soccer equipment store, but I said this is perfect. So everybody's excited about SPEED. Other than Open Data Week, I had previously done this in 5-minute lightning talks. So it is such a pleasure to have a little more time to talk about SPEED and show off some of its features and have some time for discussion and Q&A. So I had put this presentation together with a couple of my colleagues, Maxime Kleban and Eric Benedetto, who are not here this evening, but wanted to give them credit for that. So I want to give a little context here about my office and what we do. And for that, going to the Wayback Machine and take you back to 2009. The Mayor's Office of Environmental Remediation had recently been created as initiative of Plan YC, which was New York City's first long-term sustainability plan. One of the 10 chapters in that plan was on brownfields, which are sites where environmental contamination complicates redevelopment. And the goal for the brownfields chapter and for our office, which was created out of that chapter, was to clean up all contaminated land in New York City. So on the cleanup portion of that, we created the New York City Voluntary Cleanup Program, which we thought was the first and is certainly now the largest municipal program where we oversee the cleanup of contaminated land. It relies on the private sector bringing their projects in voluntarily, or there's another New York City program called an e-designation program where they have to work under our oversight. And going back to, so clean up all contaminated land. The all contaminated land was a little bit trickier. We generally learn about land contamination because some kind of environmental study is done. There are indicators you can look at, like zoning or land use or where land was filled, but these change over time, and the definition of brownfields changes over time. New York State and the federal government have slightly different definitions. So other issues with getting a handle on contaminated land was the sheer volume of data we have in New York City, the issue of stigma. If you own a property, you know, what right do I have as the government to go putting it on some speculative list of brownfields or contaminated sites? And then you've got the size and complexity of the New York City real estate market. As a matter of fact, in 2005, I did a national presentation on why New York City did not inventory brownfields. However, we've got this mission to clean up all contaminated land, and we wanted to get a handle on what we were dealing with and encourage people to clean up contaminated sites. So at the time, we came up with, oh, come on, now my mouse is asleep. There we go. In 2009, this was SPEED 1.0. And SPEED stands for Searchable Property Environmental Electronic Database, which gets trotted out in these presentations, but everybody just calls it SPEED. It was released in 2009. It was hosted by Do It for the city and included New York State cleanup sites, New York City e-designations, and historic information on vacant industrial sites. We chose about 3,400 privately owned sites that were vacant and zoned for manufacturing at the time. And we had our vendor that built this tool and also had an environmental consulting arm. We had them look through historic fire insurance maps and make a database of some of the land use information over the past 100 years. And before anybody asks, no, we do not have the license to display Sanborn maps. So we didn't have those maps then, and we don't have them now. That money for that kind of license was not in our budget. However, the platform that this application was built on, it was called WebMap, is no longer supported. It's difficult to update the data, and we could not add our own new voluntary cleanup program data to this. So hence, we had the need for a new application, Speed 2.0. And now I'm going to do this tricky thing where I close this and I actually bring you to speed. So if I minimize this and then I maximize that, does everybody now see the speed application? Nice map in New York City.
Yes, we're up to speed now.
Okay, we are up to speed. That was good. She and I did not even rehearse that. That is how good we are. And as we go, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. If you want to signal Jen to interrupt with a question, you can, or we'll have time at the end for Q&A. So this application was built to be hosted in the cloud and to be regularly updated and to allow us flexibility in adding layers. We had a grant after Hurricane Sandy, and we were able to put in a lot more resilience layers, as you'll see in a moment. And I want to give credit to Applied Geographics. We have our project manager from AppGeo today on the call, Michelle Giorgiani. Brava to the folks at AppGeo who built this for us. So this was great. This application was released on Earth Day last year, 2020, but that got overshadowed by COVID. So it's really great that people now have the bandwidth to see this. So here's my tour of speed. This is the interface. You've got a map. Hold on, I'm just going to get rid of my own picture here so it's not covering stuff up. We have layers organized into themes over here, and I'm just going to show you them so you know they're here, and I encourage people to go play with this afterward. We've got projects in our program that have been completed and ones that are active. We've got green property certification, which is after you go through our program, we give you a little certificate and a plaque that these are sites that have been cleaned up. The E-designated sites, generating and receiving sites in our Clean Soil Bank program, and those lots with historic information that I talked about from Speed 1. So that's city data. We also have state and federal data. So this comes from mostly from DEC, their bulk storage and solid waste sites, sites in the state's remedial programs, open and closed spills, and we also have federal Superfund sites. There are 3 sites in New York City that are on the national priorities list, Superfund sites, so they're in here too. Sites that are in the state's Brownfield Opportunity Area program, plus other community brownfield planning sites that either the city is given grants to or EPA is given grants to. We've got environmental zones, which enable you to get tax credits in the state's brownfield cleanup program. We've got some waterfront and coastal zone boundary information, significant maritime industrial areas, city industrial business zones, and the federal opportunity zones are here as well. The property boundary is important if you want to zoom in and see tax lots and blocks, vacant lots, and also city-owned and leased properties. Got some basic transportation, subway lines and truck routes for orientation on maps. Sensitive receptors such as hospitals, daycares, schools, which are important when you're doing site cleanup. Administrative layers, which include a lot of districts of elected officials, zip code districts, the boroughs, neighborhoods, and stuff like that. And then, as I mentioned, the resiliency layers. I can't open this because there's a Zoom thing here, but it's got the flood zones and the sandy inundation areas and the hurricane evacuation zones. So I invite everybody to go. Oh, there it is. Just opened up. I invite people to go in and explore and play around with that. So now I want to go into some of the features here that Speed allows us to look at. I'm going to go into, let's see, the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I'm pressing Shift and I'm drawing a little square, and bingo, there we are at the Navy Yard. So I want to note, in addition to the street map, we have different base map layers here of aerial photography. You can see if you go back to 1924, that there was a big basin here along the Navy Yard. And yet, if you go and look at the aerials from 2016, you can see a lot of it was filled in. So if you're working there, you know that you're dealing with historic fill. Going back to the, oops, come back here, the map. Let's turn on some layers. So I'm going to turn on the E-designated tax lots. I'm going to turn on DEC remedial sites. I'm going to put open spills on here, and let's go for those New York State end zones in case we were looking for tax credits for cleanup. All these layers can be turned on and off. You can slide them for transparency. They get brighter, they get darker. And you can also click on a feature on the map for more information. So when I click on this, there's a lot of information about that state cleanup project, and you can click there and go to the state's database. And I just want to turn on those historic sites we had and show you what we can see. Let's zoom in here a little bit.
So Lee, I think this is a question I know I'm dying to know. Juliana also put it on the chat. How can we, is there any way, of these data, all these fabulous data sets, particularly the one that deals with the environmental issues, you guys, I think it's really your data sets, available? Is it downloadable? Does we have an API? Is there a service we can grab and put into our workspace for analysis?
Yes, that is the next thing I'm going to get to. Let me just show this historic data here, and then we'll talk about metadata and data sources. So for these lots with historic information, you can go in here and click on them. It shows the bar blocking lot, click for historic information, and dun, da, 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 okay, this is not working today. It did earlier. Normally this opens to a table. Let me try one other one since I don't know what's going on here today. There we go. All right, I just picked a bad site or the internet sneezed. So when you click on the historical information, you can see it goes through these fire insurance maps going back about 100 years, and you can see the types of uses that occurred on that site. So if you're doing an environmental study, this gives you a good idea of the type of contamination you might be dealing with there. Okay, let's talk about metadata. So some of this information is our information, and we've put it up on Open Data Week, and I have a slide later that shows you which sites those are. Some of this is the state's information, so you have to go to the state GIS clearinghouse or the state open data site. For each of these, over here on the right, you can hover over this little eye that's next to it. It's got a kind of plain language description of what this data set is, and then you can click open metadata, and bingo, this takes you over to the GIS clearinghouse. Going to OER projects, let me just take off a couple of layers here so we're not looking at so many different things. So here's a site that's in our program. I click on it. I go down here. I can go to, oh, wait a second. I'm in here. we're talking about metadata here. So if I go to the sites in our program, you get a description of it. And when you open the metadata there, it takes you to New York City Open Data, which people can download the data sets for. So some of these link to an open data page and some link to an informational page about the layer. For example, for e-designations, you read about it, and when you click open metadata, it takes you to the Department of City Planning's site about e-designations. We are fortunate to have an IT intern in our office, and we're going to put together a table of all of these layers with the data sources and frequency of updates, since all the data is not in our control. So let's clear all this and talk a little bit about searching. So there are 3 ways to search for a particular property, either by address or borough, block, and lot, or you can select a tax lot on the map by using this select tax lot tool. So I'm going to do it by typing in, I looked up 500 West 18th Street. And if you pick one of the streets that's in 2 different boroughs, it's going to ask you which one you want, but this one we've only got one. And you're going to get a pop-up with basic information and links to a property profile and to view environmental features. And we'll look at both of these. So when you view the profile, you click on that link and it opens a new window with a property overview that draws information from Pluto, showing the owner, the square footage, the zoning, other information like that. Over here on the right, it links to our office EPIC's project management system, and it shows that this is an active project that's in construction. It shows the site number and the class and the phase. As you scroll down, oh, now my mouse is snoozing again. Sorry, I don't know why that happens. You get property designations, like whether it's in an environmental zone, if it has an E designation, and whether that's for hazmat, air, or noise, what census tract it's in. Over here on the right, you got these relevant political districts in case you're dealing with elected officials. Down here, it's got resiliency information, and it's got usually lists the nearby cleanup sites in both the city and the state programs and the spills. And this is not showing up today for some reason, so flag that to look into that because it usually works. And then here at the bottom, it links to other agency sites like the Department of Buildings, Department of Finance, ACRIS, City Planning, ZOLA, and the DEC State Remedial Environmental Database Search. And on things like ZOLA, if you click it, the nice thing is this goes directly to this particular site in ZOLA rather than to just a generic page. So that's kind of neat to get information about the property that you're interested in. Okay, let's go back to our site search pop-up. The other thing you can look at is nearby environmental features. And this allows you to draw a buffer around a site, either 250 or 500 feet. I'm going to choose 500 and select it. And it draws a buffer and shows speed data in the area. So this map shows OER sites, E-designations, spills, bulk storage sites, and also sensitive receptors like daycares, parks, and schools. In this case, the only sensitive receptor here is the High Line. And you can see this on the map, and you can also see it in a table going down to the lower left corner here. So these are the completed projects in the area. You can see the state remediation sites in the area. You know, if we go to the sensitive receptors, you just get the High Line. And for, going back to our sites for a moment, completed projects, there we go. You can click and view this project in, oops, I'm not signed in. Okay, this would normally take you to our document repository. I don't know why it's taking us to the sign-in page today, but that's the excitement of a live demo. All right. And you can also generate a contact list here. Sometimes we have to send fact sheets to all the adjacent properties, and that can be generated from here too, and it can be exported to Excel and used for those fact sheets. So going back to our map. Okay, we're done. How do we get rid of this? We want to keep using speed. So over here on the left, this little hourglass opens, not hourglass, magnifying glass opens an advanced selection window. So when I go there and I hit clear, it clears our search. But this panel does more interesting things than just simply clear searches. We can use this advanced selection feature. So I can go here and say, I want to look for OER cleanup sites, and I want to see them listed by which program they're in. So I'm going to put program here. And then I don't want to see all the sites. I just want to see the active sites. So I go to phase, oops, not phase, it's called class, sorry. Class is active, there we go. And I want to see the ones that are near tidal wetlands. So I go down, I find my tidal wetlands, and I can do near, within, I'm going to drag this over, oh, hello, there we go, to 250 feet. I want to see these areas on the map, and then when I hit select, it shows me the tidal wetlands, and it shows me this. If you scroll in, I think it's about 15 results. I can also see this in a table. A bunch of these are the same site listed multiple times. This might be something to look into. But anyway, you get a map of the sites, and this is a great feature to use if you want to do that sort of analysis with speed. I'm going to clear this again. I'm going to not show these location filters. And I'm going to give one more example and then can wrap it up and go to questions. So here, maybe I would just like to see spills. I'm going to look for open spills. Let's get rid of this tidal wetlands here. The status of the spill is open. And again, I'm going to narrow by location. I'm going to go for Bronx Community District 2. So I go to Community District within. The thing is here, you have to know that the Bronx is 2. This is on our kind of B list of things to fix. But so 202 is Bronx District 2. And again, let's see it on the map. I'm going to select it, zooms in, and I can see the results on a map and see these spills in the table as well. Again, with spills, this is the state's data, so we've done our best to map what they have. But in general, this does get regularly updated. I know the sites in our program get updated every night. Some stuff we have to manually update quarterly or annually. So again, when we have that table of all the data sources and how often they're updated, you know, we'll put a link in there and in the help document. So speaking of which, I just want to go back and show you a couple of final tricks here. We've got some share opportunities. So if you are looking at a map and this is interesting to you, you can share it. There's instructions for doing a little snip tool, which is kind of cool. There's a contact button, contact us button. If you have any questions or feedback about speed, it generates, one of those nifty little email boxes that, user comments, so we know exactly what it's about and can get back to you quickly. And then finally, no, I don't want to save that. And finally, we have a help document that will remind you of things like, where do I find that clear button? But in general, it goes through the, the main things you might want to know for using speed when you're not in the middle of a demo. So with that, if I can bring up my last couple of slides here. So whoever had asked about the, where can I find these? So for the city sites, they are on open data for our cleanup sites, the generating and receiving sites in our clean soil bank, and also shape files for the brownfield opportunity areas that have been designated by the state, also where there are studies that have been done in that program, and community brownfield planning grants that we have given are all there in open data. And if you go back in those layers and click the little I's, letter I, that might take you to the state GIS clearinghouse or the state open data page, or more information about the layer you're looking at. And finally, how do I look at speed? Here's the URL, nyc.gov/speed. Could not be simpler. You can also find it from our homepage, nyc.gov/OER. There's a little picture of it icon on the page. So feel free to scribble that down, make a note of it, but this is how you can contact me, and I'm glad to go to Q&A from here.